Welcome to this Master Guide Explainer. Today, we're putting on our expert literature tutor hats to synthesize literally decades of critiques into a priority-based study companion for J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit. We are going to break down the absolute mechanics of this classic, the world building, the characters, and the themes, and we're going to prioritize exactly what matters most so you can completely maximize your exam review. Let's get right into it. Here's our game plan for today, organized by priority. We'll start with the high priority stuff, Bilbo's character arc, followed by the central themes. Then we'll move into our medium priority topics, looking at major relationships and key symbols. We'll wrap up with the lower priority world and setting, and finally, lock in some essential exam quotes. Section 1. High priority Bilbo Baggins character arc. So, the 1937 New York Times review actually hit the nail on the head regarding Bilbo's internal conflict. It's basically a literal battle of genetics. On one hand, you've got the Baggins side, comfortable, respectable folk who just want peace, quiet, and absolutely need multiple dinners to survive the day. But warring against that is his Took lineage. That's this fairy-blooded, adventurous streak that literally compels our little hobbit to answer a wizard's summons almost completely against his own will. And tracking this journey is wild, because we watch Bilbo transform from a super reluctant homebody into a genuine, self-reliant hero. The absolute turning point? It happens deep within the terrifying Mirkwood forest. When he's suddenly confronted by giant spiders, Bilbo can't just hide behind Gandalf or the dwarves anymore. He has to tap into that hidden Took bravery. Critics consistently point out that this specific trial by fire is what forges his dogged courage, basically elevating him from just a hired burglar to the actual real leader of the expedition. Section 2. High priority, central themes. Now we need to contrast the corrupting, literal disease of greed against the idea of heroism found in the ordinary. Greed is so palpable in Middle-earth. We see it in Smaug, who is the physical manifestation of hoarding. But it's way more tragic when we look at Thorin Oakenshield. As critics point out, Thorin's descent into madness is directly fueled by his proximity to the gold, and especially his absolute, unyielding obsession with the Arkenstone. But right against this backdrop of kings and dragons falling victim to grand ambition, Bilbo proves that true moral responsibility and heroism actually come from just ordinary individuals choosing to do the right thing. And Peter Jackson's cinematic adaptation actually distills Tolkien's entire philosophical essence into one beautifully memorable point. Gandalf reminds us, and this is a great one for your notes, that it isn't great power that keeps the darkness at bay. It is the small, everyday deeds of ordinary folk, simple acts of kindness and love. Section 3. Medium priority, major relationships. The dynamic between Thorin and Bilbo is really the emotional anchor of the whole narrative. Thorin is incredibly haughty, and as they get closer to the Lonely Mountain, his obsession with the gold triggers a really tragic madness. But Bilbo acts as this steadfast, grounding counterweight. Even while Thorin is totally losing his moral compass, Bilbo relies on pure resourcefulness and moral clarity to try and navigate the disaster. Looking at the wider web of relationships, Gandalf is basically putting on a masterclass in mentorship here. He deliberately steps away, which forces Bilbo to gain the dwarves' trust completely on his own. This trial by fire is what leads to Bilbo's defining duel of wits with Gollum, a super tense contest where Bilbo doesn't just rely on intellect, but on a crucial, foundational moment of mercy. And finally, Thorin and Bilbo's relationship goes from outright dismissal at the start to deep, profound respect, which culminates in Thorin's famous apology at the Carrock. Section 4. Medium priority. Key symbols. These symbols act as the absolute foundation of the narrative. First up, the One Ring. It initially serves as this mysterious tool that amplifies Bilbo's natural resourcefulness so he can slip by unnoticed. Meanwhile, Smaug, he is the literal, physical manifestation of pure greed and selfishness. And the Dwarven Gold, particularly that highly coveted Arkenstone, acts as a massive corrupting agent. It's the trigger for Thorin's downfall and ultimately the climactic battle of 5 armies. Section 5. Low priority, world and setting. The environmental contrast Tolkien sets up here is incredibly stark. On one side, you have the almost overwhelmingly comfortable luxury of Bag End. Think endless pantries, soft beds, and deep, fruity laughs. But on the other side, you have the wild. Places like Mirkwood bring these grisly, terrifying illusions and giant spiders. But here's the thing. That distant memory of Shire comfort is exactly what gives Bilbo his psychological power. It reminds him of the beautiful, simple things that are actually worth fighting for. And these environmental shifts are totally mirrored by the deep political and racial tensions bubbling just beneath the surface of Middle-earth. Reviews always highlight the bitter divides at play here. You've got the exiled dwarves who are just desperate to reclaim their ancestral home. Then you have the isolationist-minded elves who are completely unwilling to get involved or help the dwarves. And finally, the desperate human men of Laketown who tragically find themselves caught right in the dragon's fiery crossfire. It's a messy political landscape, and it perfectly sets the stage for that chaotic convergence at the end of the story.
Section 6. Essential Quotes for Exam Review.
Pulled straight from a retrospective review citing Tolkien's own 1939 lecture on fairy stories, this quote is an absolute must-have for proving the high literary value of the fantasy genre. Tolkien firmly believed that fantasy wasn't just some cheap trick or lower art form. When achieved successfully, it's actually the most potent form of art, totally capable of revealing profound truths about our own world. Returning to that 1937 New York Times publication, this excerpt literally perfectly encapsulates Bilbo's high-priority character arc. If you need a rock-solid piece of evidence to summarize his transformation from a hesitant homebody to a capable, doggedly courageous leader, this is your go-to, academically sound quote. Write this one down for sure. As we wrap up this explainer, I actually want you to look inward for a second and ask yourself a question. We all have these competing natures inside us, right? So how do Tolkien's masterful character dynamics apply to you? When you face your own daunting, unexpected journeys, do you lean into the predictable comfort of the Baggins, or do you answer the call of the adventurous Took? Keep that in mind as you continue your study.